Okay, the ayes have it. The vote is unanimous to approve the first reading of revisions to BEDH, public participation at meeting. We will now move to 11.7, which is policy BEDI, which is news media service at board meetings. The recommended change for that is to, the title needs to change because media relations with the board does not just happen at board meetings. It needs to say, board media relations, period. And the reason being is there's a statement there that says, unless designated as indicated in this policy, board members shall state that their comments are not stated on behalf of the school board, but that they are individual comments made by the board member. That statement needs to be added, as well as comments and statements being made on television, newspapers, radio, social media outlets, blogs, op-eds, etc. Any type of communication that you are making comments on behalf of yourself. No one is authorized to speak on behalf of the board, with the exception of the board chair or the person that the board chair designates. So when we are saying things such as the board didn't this or the board needs to this, you are not authorized to talk to media on that level. You don't represent the board as their spokesperson. So we need to add that language in this policy. Again, these are policies that have been brought forth to me by board members that are of concern. And again, Eva, I will give you the writing on this so that you have it. I do need a motion on this particular policy change.
I make a motion so we can make changes on this specific policy.
Second. Okay, the motion's been made by Commissioner Myers. It's been seconded by Commissioner Clyburn. We'll open the floor for any questions or comments. Commissioner Lomanak.
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. I guess I have some concerns just based on your description a moment ago. If a board member says, I believe the board should do this, that seems like a perfectly fine statement to put on social media or to say to a reporter, right?
But here's the challenge. What's to say that the board isn't doing this? Right. Just because you may not know it doesn't mean it's not happening. Well, so you have to be careful that it don't become defamatory, because sometimes there's some statements floating out here. The board didn't this, the board's not discussing this, and just because you might not have been in a conversation, or whatnot, doesn't mean it's not happening. And that I'm assuming that's the clarification. And the board member want to chime in can for that statement being said. When you talk about the board, you're talking about the collective body, all 7 of us. As an individual, you can only speak about you. You can only speak about you. You can only say, what you can say is, I need to do a better job of having a discussion, or I need to do this, but when you say, well, the board needs to do a better job, well, that's your opinion. So how could you prove that the board, Ms. Myers may be having a discussion, Mr. Devine may be doing X, Y, and Z. So that's why you can't say the board. The power that lies up here at this table is not in me, it's in us. So that's why we have to be careful that when we make comments and statements, we clarify it's my opinion, it's own it, it's my statement, and it's about me, what I feel about me. You can't really cast judgment on any other board member.
But that's where I think you're running into big time First Amendment problems. I can absolutely say, I believe that the board should listen to teachers more, or I believe that the board should do this about evaluating teachers or staff or principals. If we're using a policy to try to dictate that I'm not allowed to say that, or other board members are not allowed to say that, I think that's a huge legal problem.
But now, you're missing something, Mr. Lomanak. We're not talking about a discussion with us. We're talking about you talking to the media and saying, right. Because let me tell you where what you're saying is incorrect. You don't know the conversations that we are having with teachers. Okay? So you may have to at some point, explain that to the board, that you're saying we're not talking to teachers. Everybody at this table can attest to the fact that we talk to teachers, we talk to principals, we talk to cafeteria workers, we talk to the employees of this district, because that is a part of our job. So when we say that we are not having a conversation, you have now included this entire body in that. So what you would really need to say, as a board member is, I feel I need to talk more to the teachers. We can't say a we because many of us talk to faculty and staff.
Okay. What if I said this to a reporter? I don't think we listen to teachers enough. I don't think the board and the administration listen to teachers enough. I can come up with other examples that don't involve
But
teachers.
you can't say the board and the administration don't listen to teachers enough because you don't know that. How can you justify that? What is your metrics to say that?
This is where the problem is. We are using a policy to dictate the parameters of what we're able to say.
No,
what if I say I don't think we're given enough information about administrative hires?
But that's personal for you, because I may not feel that way.
Well, that's fine, and you can tell the reporter that you disagree with me and you think the board does do all the things they should do. But I think this is a huge legal issue.
It's not legal, and I'm gonna tell you why. Again, in training, they teach, and Mr. Parliamentarian, President of the School Board Association, you can chime in at any time. The policy says when it comes to media relations, the board chair is the designated spokesperson. Am I correct, Commissioner Bishop? That's the way it's been when you've been chair. It's the way it's been when you've been chair. That is the spokesperson. So when media contacts us about a story on the buses, and I can attest to this from Commissioner Clyburn. She referred them to me, okay? Because I'm the spokesperson for the board. Not unless I said, Commissioner Clyburn, you can speak on behalf of the board about the buses.
I'm not talking about speaking on behalf of the board, but I can speak on my behalf about what I think the board should or should not do. I'm an elected official with a constituency.
Not trying to take your power from you, Mr. Lomanek. I think you're missing the purpose of the policy.
When a reporter called me this past weekend,
mm-hmm.
I gave a comment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that I have any obligation to say I'm not going to speak to you about that. I think that I'm allowed to give the comment that I gave.
Okay. And did you tell the reporter that I am speaking solely for Robert Lomanek?
Of course, but that's my next question. How do you enforce this? Do you call the reporter and ask them? Because they're not going to print that. They're not going to waste 7 words in print to say, and by the way, he made sure to tell me that he's speaking not on behalf of the board, but on his own behalf as a board member. But that's different than what you're saying, because you're saying I cannot criticize the board to the media.
Well, you can criticize the board, but you may open yourself up to defamation lawsuits.
Well, that's fine, but I don't think we can, by policy.
But it's a policy across the state to have a spokesperson for the board, Mr. Lomanek. And hear what I'm saying. I'm not telling you can't talk to the media. I am saying that when you talk, you need to speak exclusively for you. You can't speak for me.
I'm not speaking
you
for
can't speak for, but you can't even criticize me to them because you don't know me. You just got here.
I can criticize you.
No, you cannot criticize me.
I can.
Madam Chair.
Okay, well, do it.
That is a First Amendment issue.
But you're an elected official. You serve on this board.
Does not prevent me from saying things that are critical of you.
Commissioner Bishop.
Let me add to the conversation.
Please do.
There's a statement in the 3rd paragraph. I think it is the 2nd sentence. The board chair would be the official public spokesman. So, how do we, Madam Chair, make sure that what is official and what is unofficial? Is it because of what you state as our spokesman, our spokesperson, and who you designate? Is that make it official?
What makes it official for an individual to speak on behalf of the board is the board chair. This is, y'all, I didn't ask for the role of this, but it's in a policy that the board chair is the spokesperson.
Because
so it's our policy.
So the media is requesting an
official statement
regarding an agenda or item
on behalf of the
board.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if someone else speaks outside of you and a designee, that is not
official.
Okay.
Exactly. And it can have ramifications to it because you're speaking for the board and you're not officially allowed to be the spokesperson based on this policy. It's not saying you can't talk to the media. It is just simply saying that there's a protocol you follow when you want it. And honestly, most media outlets know to call the board chair. I'll say that again. Chairman Bishop, you know this. They call you because they know you're the chair. I don't understand why, sometimes that doesn't happen, but it is happening. And the statement looks like it's coming from the board, and it's not. And that is why this policy was asked of me to bring this back before the board for us to review it, to make sure we put it in layman's terms that everyone understands. When you're speaking and you're out here saying X, Y, Z and the third, you're taking on the liability of that yourself, not the board.
Madam Chair, just
Yes,
follow
sir.
up from my point.
Mm-hmm.
So let's wordsmith it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's official, it has some standard or some base to the conversation, right?
Absolutely.
Therefore, responsibility is laid upon you to speak with accuracy to the point of the matter.
Right.
If it's unofficial, it may be some
That is correct.
gray area there
Right.
where, as a board, it doesn't speak totally for us.
Exactly. And I think that when this policy was brought to me, I think that was the concern that was raised by the board member, is this is not speaking to what we do in the district. So for a board member to say this to the media, this is not correct, because this is not true. We do this. We do that. So that is why the policy was brought back before the board, is because of the fact comments and statements are being made on behalf of the Board of Commissioners. And these are not folk that are being designated by myself. These are not my words. It's your policy. I'm just working to do my job to enforce it. So like I said, I welcome any comments, any suggestions that is to be made in clarifying. But as it's been stated in this policy, and I'll read it again: unless designated as indicated in this policy, board members shall state that their comments are not statements on behalf of the board, but they are individual comments made by the particular board member. And that relates to television, newspapers, radio, social media, blogs, op-eds, etc. And it's been motioned, it's been seconded, and we're at the point of discussion. And are we ready to call for the vote? Commissioner Lomanak.
So that's it. All you just added. So, because that does not say that someone cannot criticize another board member. That's different than what you just read. I mean, what you just read is, I don't see the point, but it's fine. But that's different than saying you cannot criticize another board member. And that's what I'm concerned about, and would love Ms. Williams to maybe do some research on and figure out whether we can dictate whether one elected official cannot criticize another elected official. But that's different than what this statement is saying.
Again, Mr. Lomanak, as I stated before, you are welcome to say, I feel, I think, I ain't, I need to, but you cannot say, the board don't this, the board don't that, the board needs to this, the board needs to, because you cannot speak for the board's performance. That's not the role you play. You can speak as an individually, but you cannot speak collectively, because the board did not give the power to an individual board member to speak officially. They gave the power to the board chair. And when the board chair is not able to provide those statements or comments for whomever it is, board chair can designate. And I've done that plenty of times. I've sent Commissioner Devine to things that I could not be at to speak on behalf of the board. That happens all the time.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner King.
All right, so following your reasoning.
Ms. King, you talking to Mike? I can't hear you.
Yes. So following your reasoning, that's fine that the board chair is designated. But does that also mean that the chair cannot make a statement that represents the entire board unless the board has agreed and voted on that statement? Because if it represents the board, the only thing that really represents the board is a vote.
And Ms. King, and I hear exactly what you're saying, but I think you are not getting the gist of what this policy is saying. the board chair is not gonna come back to take a vote every time someone asks us a comment. How do y'all feel about the bus, the new electric bus? The board is excited. Am I lying?
Well, but
The board chair is not gonna get out here and defame
Well,
the
I
board.
don't know, but we may have different opinions, and if it's something that we haven't discussed, but
But-
you represent the board, and I happen to disagree with you, which is fine because it's part of diversity, right? And openness and discussion, right?
Absolutely.
You know, I can, if that reporter comes to me and says, "What do you think about this?" I'll say, "It is, as a board member, it is not. It's not my position, and I don't think that's a good direction for the board. I can perfectly say that because it's my opinion, right?"
And you said it exactly correct. You said,
Okay.
I feel, I think. You see what I'm saying?
But I could say the board, in my opinion, and you could separate that. Maybe the reporter separates it. The board is not taking the steps that I would like for the board to take, and that would be perfectly fine because it's one person's opinion, right? So it's anybody here can talk to the press. One, two. Yes, the board chair has been designated.
I just want you all to understand
I'm
something.
sorry, I wasn't finished.
But I'm almost finished with the
you
debate.
know, you speak for a long time, so
And
please allow me to
unfortunately, I
finish.
have to, Miss King, because issues
Madam
like
Chair.
this arise because we won't follow our own policy.
Madam Chair. we
Okay,
all-
and then the board chair. Let me correct
Madam,
something.
no, wait, let me finish.
I'll let you
It's
finish.
not because you don't like what you read that some board members say, then we come and amend a policy which will be absolutely unenforceable. And I agree with Mr. Lundman, that absolutely infringes on freedom of speech. It's just not smart. I mean, the policy as it stands is it is modeled after the model policy, and it says everything it needs to. User designated, but you know, everyone on this board, as far as I know, can talk to the press anytime they want.
Absolutely.
Now you're right.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't say the board has decided that, because it wouldn't be true if it hadn't been, you know, for a vote. But we can absolutely express criticism. We can express direction, wishes, desires, etc. I mean, that is all part of, you know, the last thing I want us to do. And that really scares me, especially given the world events. The last thing I want to do is have a policy that essentially is putting in place censure. I will never accept that.
And Ms. King, you have a right to not accept anything that you don't want. And as a board member, I don't have to accept when individuals put false narratives out here.
Well, you don't
And
have to
that
accept that.
I have the floor. Now I have the floor. Now I yielded to you and I gave you respect and I ask that you do me the same. It's a sad thing when we should be working to build the district. We put false narratives out here. We tell mistruths. And you want us to rubber stamp it like it's okay. It's never okay, Dr. Bishop. It's wrong. It's wrong. And it's sad that we have to take time to go through policies and say things like, you can't record executive session, or use your phone on speaker so outside individuals can hear your discussion. It's sad that we have to take a policy and say, you cannot talk about we the board. Criticize, go ahead. It's defamation. Know your role as an elected official. Know your role. Am I wrong, Commissioner Devine? Know your role. Do your research. Do your research. I can promise you that before I brought these policies to you tonight, I didn't talk to an attorney because I'm thorough. I talked to attorneys. And I am saying to you, statements being made to various entities, social media outlets, etc., are speaking mistruths about not just in this district, there's other places. It's happening in lots of districts. But we have to address it, y'all. And if you're getting offended, maybe you're the victim. Maybe you're the person doing it. I don't know. But I have a job to do as the chair. I had a colleague on this board say, you're the designee for this board. And I'm getting calls why does this? Because a board member said. a board member told the media this, and it wasn't true. So I had to do my job, Commissioner Clyburn, and bring this policy back to this board and say, hey, this is a concern of this board that individuals are making comments that they know are not true to create false narratives about this district. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Now, if you don't want me to do my job, you shouldn't have elected me. But as the chair, I got to follow this policy. And that policy says, I am your designated spokesperson, or whom I designate. There have been events I couldn't make it to. I sent Clyburn to receive our award. There are things I couldn't go to. Commissioner Bishop did the funeral services for us to make president, because I cannot be everywhere. But I can assure you, anyone that has gone and spoke on behalf of this board, we have come together and discussed what is to be said. Truth telling. Now, there's a motion on the floor. It's been properly seconded. We've debated it. We've exhausted the debate. I'm calling for the vote at this time. Let the record reflect that the first reading of Board Media Relations Policy BEDI has been approved. Vote is 5-2. We'll now move on to Policy DH, which is bonded employees and officers. The one correction that we are recommending